All right, welcome back everyone to Jface Games. This is an exciting one. So if you have been with me on this 2-year journey, or if you haven't, we are going to get published. The pressure system has found a home. So let's get right into that. So what are we going? Well, let me talk about what we're going to get into this video. I'm going to put little timestamps at the bottom. It's going to be who the heck is publishing us. What's the story behind how that came to be? What's going to be the title of the book? And sort of a little bit of the concepts there. And then I'll probably get into episode 2 of the campaign thus far, Lost in the Eversea, and what's happened with that. So this is going to be the first part, which is who the hell is publishing us? And this one's pretty exciting. The pressure system is going to be published, or at least currently the works are in, that Runehammer is going to be picking up the publishing for the pressure system. Now, how the hell did that happen, right? Well, I have been reading a lot of entrepreneurial books lately, and a lot of those books talk about shooting your shot, right? The idea of like, you gotta ask the questions. People say no, who cares? That kind of thing, right? And I was inspired by that, thinking like, here I am, 2 years into this pressure game, and I'm noodling, right? I'm noodling with rules. And I thought, well, you know what? I just need to find someone. You know, the whole idea of I'm going to build up an audience and then I'm going to kickstart it, and I'm going to be as successful as Arcane Library or Matt Colville. Like, those are really cool and inspiring stories. But at the rate I'm building subscribers, love my subscribers. Everyone who's been a subscriber and who's joined the Discord channel, the pressure system wouldn't be where it is today without that group, right? Without you guys giving me feedback. And, but I'm not going to be at 500,000 subscribers. It's just, I'm very niche, and I'm talking about a game and we're designing a game together. And it's a very small group of that finds that to be entertaining or educational, right? And that's what you're going for on YouTube. You're either entertaining or educational. And this is very niche. So for me, it was, well, let's see if I can find someone to work with, right? That I can collab with. And I'll show off the books I have because I am a huge fan of a lot of Runehammer stuff, right? I've got most of the books. And there's just something about these, what are these, A5 books, I guess, the size. There's something about the size and the quality of these books, especially with the way their layout is designed, the artwork that Hankrin puts out, the tabs, you know, the bookmarks that are just built in there. Just everything about these has always been, to me, pretty inspirational to sit down and want. Like, these are the type of books that when you look at this book, it makes you want to play, right? Because it's just fun. And so I was looking at those books and I thought to myself, I want a book like that. Let me just contact them, see what happens. So I cold emailed and I said, hey, I might even put the email up here in a second, but we'll see. I, in essence, said, hey, I think that we should work together, right? That you should publish my game. In essence, I said, hey, I've been working on a game. I've got a YouTube channel. I think that I've got some cool mechanics that you might like. What do you think about publishing it? That was in essence what I was saying, right? It was very nicely thought out and describing, hey, I know that you have a collaboration with some other designers. I'd love to be involved. And the response was in essence like, it seems like you're in the construction phase still. Like, I didn't attach anything. So, of course, I then send back a 2-page PDF that's a very sort of like streamlined, here are the main mechanics of the pressure system. And rightfully so, I assume that they're crazy busy right now. The response was, hey, this is good, interesting ideas, but you really can't make a TTRPG out of 2 pages, right? So I then send back, I exported everything I have from my version 2 of the pressure system, and I put it in a PDF, and it was like 77 pages. And so I think finally that was all right, you've kind of got something here. Let's get on Discord and let's have a conversation. And so then I'm sweating. My palms are sweaty. We scheduled a day to get on Discord. And I pull up Discord and boom, there's the man himself, right? I'll put his face. Boom, Hankrin. Brendan, and immediately, what I loved about the conversation was the second the video came on, he had dice in his hand already, and he was like, "All right, I've got my dice. Tell me what's happening." There was no like small talk. There was no like, "Well, let's feel each other out." It was, "Let's talk about the game. Tell me what I'm supposed to roll, and tell me how this works." And I'm like, "Oh, the good thing. I think that actually, dude's genius." And I think that to me, that was actually liberating in a way, because immediately I just go into DM mode, right? All right, this is what you're rolling. This is your stat. This is blah, blah, blah. And I think that a lot of us who DM and GM, that's sort of like a safety net, right? So I just go straight into that and I'm like, this, and we're hashing things out, and he's telling me things he loves, and he's telling me things that he would change, and he's giving me great advice. And by the end of the conversation, it was, "Hey, I think that we can work on something." And he told me sort of like what he did with DM Scotty, and let's talk about this system. And since then, and this is why the channel's been a little silent for the last month, is that since then, I've been hammering out now the first book and really working on, in essence, the table of contents. So I'll give you a little sample in just a second, but what's been great about that is I've been talking with Hanker, and he's been giving me a lot of advice on the writing, right? And we had to come up with a name. The pressure system was not going to be an evocative name for a book. So step one was really getting an idea for the book. And some of you have heard me talk about the setting that I usually play in, or that I've been building around the pressure system. And so with that setting, we came up with the first title, and the first working title for the first book is The Scattered Isles. And so here, this is my current table of contents for The Scattered Isles. And this is what I've been working on. I've been really flushing out. I'm going through fast because we can't give spoilers yet. I've been working on this book and the language here, and the trimming down the rules to really make it a lot more immediately approachable for anyone who is joining the game, right? And it's becoming a real product now, which is crazy exciting. And it's been nice because I've worked a lot on the rules lately, and I've trimmed down the rules, and I've streamlined the rules, and we have now Lost in the Eversea, which is the campaign that I'm playing with friends every Wednesday night. And in that campaign, we are implementing the rules and implementing the character sheets. And I can even give you a little sneak peek of what's the current character sheet. Actually, you know what? I think I have one printed out. No, this is an old one. This is an old character sheet. But we're using these character sheets now, and so my players have them all printed out. I have a newer character sheet. I don't have it up here currently, so I'll have to get that for you. So it's been crazy exciting here, guys, and I'm excited to be able to do this with you guys and sort of to finalize this whole talk before I go into the campaign, what's been going on in the campaign. What I'd like to say is that part of this now becomes a little bit of a challenge, right? Because I've got two mindsets, right? I'm going to grab something real quick. All right, so the two mindsets that are challenging to kind of think through is that one thing that Runehammer and I have that's slightly different in our theories of like approaching this product is that, and of course I'm leaning in towards his advice wholeheartedly because he's got these beautiful products already, right? But this was a book I loved when I was first getting into YouTube in general, which is the Show Your Work book by Austin Kleon. And this is the idea that by working in public and just being completely transparent in the process, which I've been doing up to this point, you develop an audience, and then that audience has gone with you on this journey and they want to continue on the journey, right? And I love this. But there is also this idea of what Runehammer usually does is there's a lot more of a vagueness to the products as they're being developed, with a little bit more of focusing on the story of the campaigns they're working on to get interest, and then boom, the product drops and it's all your information's coming at that moment and there's this hype, right? And so I think that both are different tactics. This is a tactic more for creators who are full-time creators, right? This might be something that a full-time YouTuber is using as opposed to someone who just wants to create an individual product one time. But I still want to bring in a lot of people into this process as I'm going along with it, right? So what does that mean? That means that I believe I'm still going to be doing a lot more on the newsletters, right? So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, I don't give like a weekly newsletter, but I think I'm going to be doing updates on the game as much as I can in that. The second thing would also, if you join the newsletter, that's probably going to be when we're getting close to publication. That's where I'm probably going to drop a lot of that information in emails to whoever's on that email list. The second thing is the Discord channel. That's where I'm most candid about this whole process. It's been a little hush-hush lately just because I've been grinding on this. But that's where I'm probably going to hash out most stuff, because those are the individuals that I've been talking about the game and playtesting the game previously before starting the campaign the most. So I hope to keep them involved in the process, because I find that their advice and their feedback is just rich, right? And it's been so helpful that I want to continue with that. So those are the two locations that are going to get the most information. I'll probably still be on here doing some other games, right? I'll probably get back to doing some of the random sort of reviews of games and talking about what mechanics I love. But I will say that now that I'm on this road for designing and writing out the book, I'm probably going to be mostly focused on the writing process. All right, so that should cover that. Now, finally, Lost in the Eversea. What happened to our players in the most recent episode of Lost in the Eversea? Okay, so what happened in the second episode of Lost in the Eversea? Well, if you remember, there was a kraken bearing down on the Iron Isles, and the players are up in this lighthouse, and they see it coming, and they're freaking out. But they also notice that they still have their two minions down in the boat that's parked on the island. Even though they brought it around the back of the island, it's still parked there, and they're like, crap, this thing's going to obviously eat them. So two things they notice. One, the compass that's on the ground that was above the hatch down into the bunker, it is now glowing. And also the emerald that they took out of the lighthouse, that was the lighthouse source, now has these sort of red little like glyphs that are glowing on it. They were unable to determine what the hell all this meant, but what in essence it was a warning system, right? It was telling you that sea denizens were on the way, but they had no idea what that meant, right? But it was glowing, okay? So at this point in time, this picture that I'm showing here, this is in essence what the Kraken looked like. Or not the Kraken, sorry, the Leviathan. The Leviathan was in essence like a Loch Ness monster type creature, but it had these massive tentacles, like, 50 tentacles out of its back that it had like sharp hooks on and whatnot. So it's coming. They then decide, we got to go into the bunker because we got to get that sky mineral, the sky crystal, and see if we can use the sky crystal to use our boat to get the hell out of here. So they end up heading down, and they end up grabbing their groupies, and all 5 of them, because there's 3 players and 2 allies, go down into the bunker underneath. Now, what do they find in the bunker? Well, when they get to the bunker, they find the crab that was sort of protecting that mine shaft that was kind of sleeping. It's now agitated. It's clicking away, and it looks agitated. It also, they see that the stones, there's that map, and that map had all of those moving stones on it, right? It was this big stone map of the world as they know it, and there's all these black stones and these white stones. They determined the black stones were, now they know that those are the Leviathans and their locations. They don't know what the white stones are. And then there's now all of a sudden there's stones above the map, like on the ceiling. And the ceiling's a little lowered above the map, and they're moving. There's these stones there. So like, what the hell are those? So this is what they're finding, right? And they decide, we got to figure out, we got to get this crystal out. We're going to get this sky crystal, and we're going to get the hell out of here. So at this point in time, also, the room starts to flood, right? Because they find the Leviathan has crashed into the island, and there's a huge tidal wave that kind of hits, and it's also high tide. So the room is starting to flood just a little bit, right? Not crazy. There's like water has come up, but it means that when they open the mine shaft, it's full of water. Well, one of the players, the one who can hear Leviathan talk, or hear sea denizens language, he understands it, but he can't speak back, which was just a Leviathan blood was like a flavor I gave him. He hears the Leviathan above screaming, right? And what he hears, like everyone else hears the roaring, but he hears it say, "Bring me the Mistwalker." And he has no idea what that means. And that also means that they now know that something's coming. And the two allies are near the door, near the stairs that go up, and they're like, "Someone's trying to get in," because they hear like and so they're like, "Well, we got to figure this out." So he jumps down into the water, down the mine shaft, and an ability I wrote down, which was in essence like you can move I don't remember how much water it was, but you can move a certain amount of water. You can move a certain amount of water, right? I was thinking of it like a cantrip, right? Where it's like you have a little bit of control of water. But he asked, can I push the water back in the mine shaft to like allow us to get to the crystal? I was like, that's pretty cool. So I said, yeah, sure. So in essence, he was able to bring the water down the mine shaft and then hold it like a door where he's at. But the allies now, the two other players, they jump down the mine shaft and there's like a sheet of water. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? Because they had no idea he has these powers. And he's holding it back, and he's tense. And they now have the option of walking in and getting towards that, to where the sky crystal is. Now, two things happen here. One, there was a skull that I mentioned that was right next to the mine shaft that's sort of like attached to the wall. And that was there before, but they kind of ignored it. Well, now one of them touches it. When they touch it, they get this voice in their head. And all of a sudden, someone's talking to them, right? The skull is, in essence, a old pirate, right? And he's, in essence, the one who... I guess I'll just say it anyways. He's, in essence, the one who... I don't know if they're listening, but screw it. He's the one who, in essence, created this little hideaway. And this hideaway is a pirate hideaway. And his name is Scrim Southbound. Right here, I found it. Scrim Southbound. And so he starts giving them a little bit of information in regards to what is this place and what the hell, is kind of going on. So one of them is talking to that, right? Talking to that. The other one, the one with the big axe, I don't have their names memorized at the moment. So I know Locke is the one that's holding back the water. Gunther is the one who is now listening. He's got the guns. And he's talking to the skull, trying to get information. And Big Axe is saying, I'm going to go get the crystal. So he wades into the water and comes up to the crystal. And he makes a check, in essence, to try and figure out things. And he notices the wall that's holding the crystal is sort of like precarious. And so he's a little bit nervous because this crystal might not have been mined. It hasn't been mined, potentially because it's weight bearing. Like this wall might crumble. So he makes a mining check, which he's terrible at. And because of that, he gets the crystal out, and the wall breaks, and he is it's now water is gushing in from the ocean. And it slams Locke against the back wall, but he's still holding it back. However, I now give them a timer. I say, this is how much time it's going to take until this room is flooded, that you can't hold back this water anymore. At the same time, there was already a timer going for when are they going to get in from up top. So now everything's getting crazy. Well, Big Axe decides, screw it, I'm going to try and swim through this tunnel and see where the hell it goes, because he has no idea. And so this was one of the coolest things for me, because now organically a skill check came about for the pressure system that to me was perfect, which was he had a swim check, right? So his swimming ability was, I think, a D6. It might have been a D4, actually. I think he might have been unskilled. So he's unskilled. He's got a D4. Let me hold up the right dice. He's got a D4. The challenge rating at this moment in time, I believe, was a D8. So he was rolling a D4 versus a D8, right, in order to succeed at this check. But what came to my brain in the moment, it was one of those things that just kind of happened, but it makes perfect sense for the system, is that it wasn't a check in the sense of you're either going to succeed or fail, meaning that you're not going to be able to swim out or you're going to be able to swim out, right? Because that to me is not dramatic and not exciting. And that leaves a null state, right? So instead, it was, look, you're going to be able to swim out. I didn't tell him this immediately, but in my head, this is what it meant. It was more fun to say after the fact. But you're going to be able to succeed at swimming out. But if you fail your check, however much you fail by, that's how much stress you took. And he took a lot of stress. I think he rolled a 2 on his D4, on his check, and I think he rolled like a 6. So he took 4 stress from the swim. So you imagine he's getting like bumped around by the current. He has no idea where it's going. He's getting scratched up. He makes it up, and what do you know? He comes up on the shoreline of the island. And when he does, he sees the Leviathan there, and this is when I showed them the picture, and he was like, holy crap. It ducks down, and it actually swam around the island. We rolled high or low to see if it swam towards him or away from him. It swam on the other side. And when it swam around, it then bashed on their boat a little bit and then took off. And they don't know why, but what was happening actually is if someone were looking at the map, they would have seen that there was a second Leviathan coming towards that location. And so it was like a territorial battle. Like it was heading towards this other Leviathan. At first, it might have freaked them out seeing a second black token moving towards that island. They're like, we're totally screwed. But it wasn't. So now he sees these guys, these sea snakemen up here. And I had two different types. There was a range type, and I very rudimentary. I had a thrower and shield walls, right? I was trying to just make something very basic. And he then, Big Axe is waiting there. And meanwhile, all the other people come swimming up, right? They all make their checks. They're taking stress. The two allies, they roll their checks. They succeed. Now they're all up on the island. And now we get into combat. And the combat, I think what happened necessarily, what I wanted to happen, happened. Right off the bat, those tridents start getting chucked. One of the allies goes down. They fight their way through the shield wall. They're pushing their way through and doing all kinds of cool stuff. I was excited because of the fact that they weren't just like, I'm going to fight straight up. They were doing different dynamic things to try and move around the battlefield. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up the battlefield. So in essence, this was the island. And they came up on this side, and there was a choke point. Right, so this is high ground. They can't get here. And so here's a choke point. They got to try and get through here, and there was a shield wall and trident throwers. Now, what was cool, which they didn't realize at the time, but these trident throwers, I'll show you, I decided to just make something up, and I said that when they're throwing, they're at the D10 pressure when they throw, and they get +1 for every additional thrower, right? So they, in essence, chuck these things in unison. And I think there were two of them here, and right off the bat, Gunter, he used an ability, or he used a tactical action, which was a specific tactical action for the controller, which was to suppress. So he was suppression firing one of the trident throwers, which means they would no longer could throw in unison because one of them was being suppressed, right? So he saved he saved a lot of people from taking a lot of stress potentially because of that. And what was cool about it was he was just constantly with his tactical action every round, keeping that person suppressed, even though it was burning through potentially ammo. He was keeping them suppressed, and then he took off, right? And what happened was Salazar, Big Axe, he charged in and broke a line in the shield wall so that Locke could take off, and Locke took off this way. And these guys weren't over here. These were chasing eventually. And then meanwhile, once they broke through, now you had Locke and his buddy, Da or something. It was like a homeland like ally. They're in trouble, right? And so they have to make their way. And in essence, what became a chase, where it's these guys are now all running and being chased, and they're trying to get to the boat before badness happened. What was great is when Salazar came by this is the opening where the compass is. What they didn't know is there were 6 more of these sea snakemen underneath that had chased down, and they were going to come back up. And when he saw this open, he immediately closed it, right? And I was like, great, good idea. And so he closed that, and then he started running. So now they weren't getting completely pinched. And so what happened was the fight was actually, it turned out to be really solid. You can see there's 3 of them on the boat. Unfortunately, the last ally, what I loved was Locke was really trying to help RP trying to keep his countrymen alive. And so when they were running this way, he made sure to stand behind him so that the tridents were going to hit him in the back when they were thrown. And I think he took a small little scratch from it. But then what happened was the boat was sinking because it had been hit by the Leviathan. So Gunter ran over here to try and start fixing it. And Salazar came over to help. Or I think Gunter was putting the crystal into the mechanism. He was trying to get the boat airborne and coming out of the water. And meanwhile, Locke was the one who was good at woodworking and stuff. So Locke was trying to get over there, and they were calling for him. So then he sprinted, and when he sprinted, he was now in front of his ally, and that's when the ally got just taken down with some tridents from behind. And so he felt terrible. But it was one of those moments where he was like, I got to push forward to try and make sure that I can work on this ship so it doesn't sink, because there was a timer. There was a sinking timer on the boat, and it was like, I got to push forward to help to get out, or do I stay where I'm at? Oh, I'm going to risk it. And then right when I made it so that right when he pulled ahead of his ally, the ally takes it. And so he was distraught, but he gets here, and he's able to patch up the ship. They're able to get into the mechanism. These guys are trying to run back, and they're getting ready to throw, and then all of a sudden, the airship lifts up in the air. And so what they then also found is when they got up in the air, they found that what was the other above the map that were floating above the maps, those were pirate ships. And in essence, that was the way the pirate ships could, or this pirate sort of like hideout, they were in essence tracking the pirate ships where their allies were and where they were in the air. They were tracking what's the Leviathan movement, and they were tracking the patrolling ships for High Levy. So that's in essence what happened. At this point in time, they've made it above the cloud, and they are now heading towards Freebooters Harbor, which was one of the things they had read on the wall, and now they have the skull, and Scrim is telling them kind of how to get there. And what they're in for is that this is a pirate harbor, and immediately there are 4 factions on this harbor, and you have to choose a faction upon stepping foot, because if you're not unionized, or if you're not wearing certain colors, if you don't have the right colors on, then anyone could take advantage of you. So you have to choose a side, put colors on immediately, but then you're immediately into the politics because of that. So we'll see where that goes. All right, that's it for this video. Hopefully that gives you an idea of episode 2 on Lost in the Eversea, and I can't wait to tell you what happens in episode 3, and I can't wait to tell you more about the process of Scattered Isles. See you guys. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell, leave some comments, and can't wait to talk to you guys soon.